aluminum, aluminum, right? That's what it's called. Aluminum foil. Hey food nerds, I'm Julianne Fader, the Gastro Nerd, and it's time to get your date night on at home. There's no better way to impress him or her than making a homemade meal. So for date number 3, bring him chez toi, which means your house, and make something. And it doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, I'm going to show you how to make my favorite classic spaghetti and meatballs. It's comfort food, and the best part is everything's gonna be ready so you get to look like a pro. But let's get started. So for spaghetti and meatballs, it's all about, let's face it, it's all about the meatballs, the balls. Everyone, you gotta have good balls, if you know what I mean. And to do that, you gotta have lots of flavor and fluff. So there are a couple key components. First, for flavor, we have onions. These are just yellow onions, 3 ounces, or about a cup. Now, just before I go into it a little more, this is the word I was looking for was scale. This is a scale. It's a little dinky kitchen scale. It's OXO. It's about 20 bucks. You can get it in any kitchen supply store. Do you need to have it? No, but if you have a scale in your kitchen, you will be a better baker, a more accurate chef, better measurements or weight measurements. So if you want to go that extra mile or half mile, I highly recommend you invest in one. And look, you can just slide it in, doesn't take up much space. Going back to our ingredients, 3 ounces of onions, about 2 ounces, and since this is a date, maybe like closer to 1 ounce of garlic. It's gonna cook down, so it won't be really pungent, but that garlic adds the umami and the different layers of flavor to this meatball, which makes it really exceptional. Speaking of umami, like we said, it's the 5th taste sensation. It really is the savory thing that really brings a dish together and really unites it and makes it pop. Parmesan cheese, because I don't believe there shouldn't be anything Italian without Parmesan cheese, or any food at all ever without Parmesan cheese. And I have a Costco-sized hunk of it that I keep in my fridge at all times. So 6 ounces, it sounds like a lot. It's a lot of Parmesan cheese, but that's where a lot of the flavor's coming. Now for the moisture, we're gonna use breadcrumbs. These are just regular Italian breadcrumbs. You can use panko, that's another type of it. It's a Japanese style. 4 eggs, and about a cup of milk, or a little less than a cup of milk. That's gonna make it moist. And then of course, our meat. Now traditionally, meatballs are often made with a blend of meats: beef, veal, which is baby cow, and pork. Now, you can of course adjust this, or in this case, I'm just gonna make plain old beef meatballs. So let's get started. So the first things first, we don't want huge hunks of onion, so we're gonna blend this up. Of course, you can dice this by hand and do it really finely. I have the luxury of machinery to do it for me because I am super lazy. I'm gonna throw in my cheese too. If it's already grated, you certainly don't need to do this. I just cut it off my fresh hunk of parm. Sounds like my boyfriend's name. He's a hunk of parm. All right, ooh my Lord. You wanna eat this because it looks delicious, but then you have to remember it has a lot of raw onion and garlic, and it'll bite you in the ass later. So there we go, all nice and small. The idea is it's gonna blend in with the meatball. It's not gonna pop or stand out. So I have my bowl. Now, this is a great time whenever you're working with raw meat and you're really gonna get your hands in if you're doing meatloaf, actually any raw meat for that matter. If you have, I feel like I'm in a doctor's office. If you have any sort of gloves for sanitary reasons, I highly recommend them. You can buy them in any supermarket, but it's just a safe thing. If not, really be careful and wash your hands really well. So first things first, I'm gonna crack my eggs. These are 4 eggs right into the bowl. A little whisk. So then in goes my milk. And that's just, you can continue to use a whisk and just make sure it's nice and even. These breadcrumbs are gonna add all the moisture. And the cheese helps too, but these are crucial. So in goes the meat. And this is the fun part. This is why we cook, because we get to be like children again and play with food. No one ever made meatballs for me growing up. I can attest I've never once had a mother or father or grandparent for that matter who ever made me a meatball. So finally I was like, screw them, I'm gonna learn how to make really kick-ass meatballs on my own. And I did, and now I'm sharing that recipe with you. All right, it's looking pretty good. Now you might notice I didn't add any salt. The Parmesan cheese has a lot of salt in it. It's gonna need some seasoning, but beforehand, I'm just gonna give a little dusting. See, and that's the great thing about gloves. All of a sudden I have a clean hand. You can put pepper if you like. I don't really like pepper in my meatballs. How am I gonna taste this? Shouldn't be a mystery. Let's put it in a tester ball, I like to say. We're gonna put it in a little pan right over here. So in order to make sure the salt balance is right, I'm gonna do a little tester patty, or as I like to say, snack time. So I have just a little pan on a medium to high heat, mostly because I'm just lazy and want to cook this fast. So I'm just going to take a small amount. How hungry am I right now? About that hungry. There are two general schools of thought for how to cook meatballs. You can either fry them in a pan and then cover them with sauce, or bake them. And we're going to bake them just because I think it's easier, a little less cleanup and hassle. And it's a little bit healthier because then you're not using more oil. I made a quick tomato sauce, and if you want to see how I did it, I have another video you can click to. Super easy. And if you might notice there's some big lumps in here, well, remember that Parmesan cheese that went into the meatballs? I took the rinds and I stuck them in the sauce, so all the flavor and the rinds cooked down into that sauce, so it's gonna be extra awesome. You're very done. So fluffy, it's like oozing. So time to roll the balls. We're gonna bake these on sheet trays. This is like a cookie sheet tray. They're great to have. You should at least have one, ideally two in your kitchen. They also don't take up much space, very shallow. Another thing to invest in is a Silk-Plat mat. It is silicone based, it can withstand very high heat, and the best thing is everything slips right off of it, so you don't have to worry about scrubbing down or anything sticking to your pan. I recently discovered this Reynolds Wrap nonstick aluminum foil, and I've kind of like, I usually used to use parchment paper, but this has the best of both worlds. It's kind of more malleable, you can spread it down. I'm a huge fan, and they're not paying me to say this, I just really like it. Let's roll these balls. Now, these, of course, meatballs, how big you make them will affect the cooking time, but just think of, you know, I like, my portion sizes is about like a small golf ball. Fun fact, meatballs, like so many of our favorite Italian foods, originally came from a way to stretch meat, right? What's a better way to stretch a dish than put bread in it? Meat's expensive, and putting something like breadcrumbs, stale, old bread, was a great way to make it last. So it's another great reason why it's a great date night dish, because if you're on a budget, this ain't gonna break the bank. So these are going to go into the oven. The oven's preheated to 350 degrees, and it'll be about 35 to 40 minutes. Just keep your eye on them. You don't want to overcook them, they'll get dry. Balls are out of the oven. They're looking, you can see just the beginning of a little caramelization on the cheese. Beautiful. My sauce is ready. My pasta I cooked. Of course, if you want to see how to cook pasta, you can click on this link right here. Now, of course, I'm going to plop a few of these balls right into the sauce. So there's my sauce for my pasta. And then I'm going to grab a few balls and finish cooking them. Now they're fully cooked, and this is just for flavor. These are actually totally delicious. Hot. If you haven't noticed, it got hot in here. I took off the sweater, so it's really hot. They're super awesome on their own like that, or you can finish them off also in the pan. This is just for flavor. Now, this gets a little messy, but of course you can always flip. So everything I've done up until this moment can be done in advance. You can even cook the pasta a little in advance if you really want to. I don't advise it, but you can if need be. But my meatballs, you can keep them sitting in the sauce. You can make these hours before. In fact, you can make it the day or 2 days beforehand because meatballs just get better and they absorb the sauce over time. And that's pretty good to go. To the plate. What I also love is it's a little bit messy to eat spaghetti and meatballs. So I feel like on a third date, it's kind of like a cute thing where you're sort of at that point where you've gotten to know the person, well, a little bit, but then you get to be cute and a little messy around them. And now for the balls. To the walls. And then for the final touch, because it wouldn't be spaghetti and meatballs without a little extra parm. Remember I told you I had a Costco-sized hunk of Parmesan? It's massive. And like I said, I always believe in a nice blanket of Parmesan cheese. I mean about that blanket. This is my portion. And I'll know if I really like the guy if he agrees. I'm gonna pretend I have a really cute guy next to me. I do have a date on Saturday. If he makes it to date 3, I'll get some of these. It's a good dish. It's a great dish, it's a good ball. I really think you should cook for your date because there is no better way to get to know somebody than over a shared meal, especially one that you made. Subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking this little button here and stay tuned for more delicious nerdiness to come.